everyone, welcome back to Talk Regulatory to Me, where we're your hosts. I'm Zora.
And I'm Axa.
Today we're going to talk about the different legal bases that you can choose for your application in the EU. So we're going to run through a number of different legal bases that you can choose according to the directive and what they consist of. We're going to start off with an Article 8.3. So Axa, do you want to tell us about an Article 8.3?
Yeah, so 8.3 is a full mixed application for innovative products. Now that means that this product's never been on the market before, you've never heard of it, and it's the first time ever that it's going to be reviewed by the health authorities. So that means you need to submit the full dossier. Specific sections in the dossier, including the toxicology reports. You'll have to have all the clinical studies. You'll have to have your whatever, if it's like a solid dose product, you're gonna have to have all the dissolution testing that you're doing and the specific testing according to the EMA guidelines as well. Also, you're going to require your safety studies. That's something that's really important because that's going to tell us if it's safe for human consumption. And yeah, that's it. 8.3 applications, full dossier. And it's like the biggest application, I guess, that you can submit. So Zora, do you want to talk to us about the next legal basis, which is the 10.1 application?
So an Article 10.1 application is a generic application. So that's the one that I work on
Quite
most
often.
of the time. Yeah. So I think it's probably important to start off with what a generic is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you because...
How rude.
In all the other videos, I ask you questions and then you always say, oh, cut that out.
That's because I'm not good on the spot moments.
So can you tell me the definition of a generic?
Okay, it's the... No! You're putting me on the spot again.
Okay.
I'm going to sound so stupid.
It's okay, go on.
So it's basically it's a copycat version
Yeah.
of the innovator product, and I've answered this before, so I'm very insulted, Sora. Yeah, so essentially when you've got the innovator product, and I used to work in genetics.
Exactly, that's why you should know.
I do. So you've got your innovator product, and it's the first time it's ever gone to the market. The generic is basically copying that formulation and putting out a cheaper version onto the market. It's exactly the same product. Excipients might be slightly different. But the API is exactly the same, and it's it does the same thing.
And I think
Was
you
that a good
mentioned
answer?
it was good.
Thank you.
Good. I think you mentioned that it's got the same active substance.
Yeah.
So normally with a 10.1 application, you have the same pharmaceutical form as well. You have the same route of administration. You have the exact same strengths as the innovator company as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's essentially a copycat version. So in order to show that it is the same as the reference product, you need to do something called a bioequivalent study. A part of the dossier is you have your module 1 as normal, you have the module 2 in there, so the summaries. Module 3 is full as well because that's where all of the manufacturing details are. You don't have any studies in the module 4, so module 4 is obviously the non-clinical section, but we still include the literature references that we use for our non-clinical overview. And in module 5, we don't have any safety studies or anything like that because essentially we are at that point of submission allowed to take the information and the studies that have been conducted by the innovator company. And all we need to do as a generic company is submit a bioequivalent study.
Yeah.
So that's the main study that we include in module 5. And then, of course, we include our literature references as well for our clinical overview.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note for a 10.1 as well, there's a specific time that we can submit those applications. So that's what market exclusivity is called. And when you've got your innovator product, being first on the market, they have a kind of sense of
it's an advantage that they have,
right? Because they can have their product for X amount of years, and then you have to wait for that exclusivity to be up.
We will talk about exclusivity in more detail in another video.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got that to look forward to. So that's all for a 10.1, and then the next one is a 10.3 application, which is also known as a hybrid. So when a strict definition of a generic is not met, we can also submit under an Article 10.3.
Yeah.
So an Article 10.3 is called a hybrid submission, and we would typically submit a hybrid if we have a difference in strength compared to the innovator, when there's a difference in pharmaceutical form, if there's a difference in indication, and also where bioequivalence has not been met. Those are kind of the conditions of a 10.3 application. Essentially, it's the same as a 10-1. In most cases, you will have the reference product, but then there's slight tweaks.
Yeah, I had an instance where I had to submit a 10.3 because of the indication.
Okay.
And
was it a nationally authorized reference product?
No, it was a DCP that we had submitted. And one of the CMSs wanted an indication to be included.
Okay, yes.
But we had to base it on literature. So this is where literature becomes quite important, and the references that we include within the module 5 and the module 4, depending on whether it's clinical, non-clinical, and the indication. So one CMS wanted it in and the other one didn't want it in. So we had, with this procedure, I remember it went on for like 3 years.
Wow. Long time.
Yeah, it was a very long time, just because the CMS and RMS just couldn't come to conclusions either. So we finally got the indication approved.
Because that was a DCP.
Yeah.
The reference product was a DCP.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
I know.
Normally we have that with nationals.
Yeah.
We have that quite a lot where the reference product is approved nationally.
Yeah.
And so there is that disharmonization across the product information text. And one country might have approved an indication, but another country might not have.
Yeah.
And when your indication is actually you're right, even with DCPs, when you have a application and you want to slightly tweak the indication, if it's not exactly the same, then they won't let you. Yeah, exactly. You have to submit under a 10.3. Yeah.
So next we've got a 10.4, which is a similar biologic product application, and that's essentially the same thing as generics but for biologics, so and biosimilars. So we'll have the same type of information that we'd be looking for in a 10.1 application.
And then with the same, it's like a bioequivalence kind of equivalent study, isn't it, in the module 5?
If anyone that works in biologics wants to give a bit more detailed information, then please do comment below and let us know. So 10A is a well-established use application, and this is based on purely literature. So we've got no clinical studies. We're taking what literature says and going with that and giving that as our justification. So that's quite an easy kind of sort of application. Is this product's been on the market for tens of years, or however many.
I think it's the minimum. It has to be 10 years. It has to be on the market. Yeah.
So it's been on the market for a minimum of 10 years. And so it's a well-established use. Everyone uses it with no safety issues. There's no safety concerns that anyone has reported either in that time, or if they have reported them, there've been minimal impact to the safety of the product. And so literature is enough for those applications. So Zora, 10B fixed dose combinations, what are those?
So a 10B application, so a fixed dose combination, is essentially when two separate active substances are used together for the first time. So the two monoproducts are already approved. So it's taking something like, I don't know, what two products have never been together?
Like the example earlier, paracetamol
and atenolol. Yeah. So just as an example, if you have some reason to put those two together, whatever reason that might be, that would be a fixed dose application, because
they've both been approved independently.
They have both been approved independently, and they've not been used together, or they're not two active substances in one tablet ever before, if that makes sense.
They've never been marketed before.
Whereas you have things like ibuprofen and pseudoephedrine, as an example, that already exists on the market as one product.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to submit that as a fixed dose application. That would be, if that was a innovator company, we would submit the generic. So it would be a 10.1 application.
Yeah.
But fixed dose is when there are two separate components and we want to bring them together for the first time. That would be a fixed dose combination. So we need to include some justifications in the dossier as to why that combination is useful.
Yeah.
So, if we're saying paracetamol and atenolol as an example, what is it giving to the patient? What extra advantage is it giving?
Yeah.
Is it because patients tend to take paracetamol and atenolol separately, and to give them one tablet instead of two is beneficial? I mean, I don't think in paracetamol and atenolol's example it's beneficial, but it's that reducing the number of tablets, or is there anything to show that those two active substances work well together?
So would you also need some clinical studies for a fixed dose combination?
You need to do, I think the way that you do the clinical study is slightly different. So obviously you need to do it on the mono products.
Yeah.
So the mono reference products against the test combination product, because obviously the combination doesn't exist anywhere else. So yeah, you need to do those kind of studies as well.
Interesting.
Yep.
And that's an example of that also is like you've got codeine with paracetamol as
That
well.
already exists, yeah.
So that's a fixed dose combination
Well,
product.
the first time it would have gone into the market, it would have been as a fixed dose combination.
And then if it was a generic, then obviously you'd go through the generic application route. And then finally, we've got a 10C informed consent application. This is when the innovator company gives permission to the generic company to use its modules. So that includes the module 2, 3, 4, and 5. But you just need to submit with the module 1, and you don't really need the rest of it, but you should have it available.
I think that routinely happens when you have big innovator companies. I won't say any names, but you have the big innovator companies, and obviously they have like spin-off generic companies, and it's part of the same group of companies, but obviously to increase their market share, they want to have the generic from their own company as well.
Which is really clever.
It is clever. The first time I ever heard of that, I was like, wow, that's actually quite a clever thing to do.
Because working in an innovator company, you're exposed to a lot of the strategies that innovators use opposed to generics, because I've been on both sides. So with generics, it's all about find out when an innovator company's exclusivity is expiring, get your application ready,
and then you work kind of backwards from when you're able to launch.
Then submit. But with innovators, they're like, okay, we know a generic's eyes on our exclusivity for this product. Now what can we do in order to have that market share, which then means start a new company.
And they'll probably, because that essentially the product is the same, they already have everything set up for launch and every supply chain, so they can literally, it's always going to be a day one launch for them.
And when pharmacists etc or doctors are prescribing products, they prescribe the API, so it doesn't matter what the brand name is really. So when you're getting dispensed in a pharmacy, the pharmacist isn't going to know that this generic is by the innovator as well. Sometimes the innovator companies will be stated on it depending on what they've named their company, but they can't then have a preference of I'm going to choose this generic over the other generic unless there's
some patients apparently some patients actually ask for it. I want a generic that's made by this company, or I want this brand name.
Well, I used to work in a pharmacy in my younger days as well, and I always remember this patient coming in. And it was, I think it was a omeprazole that they wanted, so or that was prescribed, so we gave them the generic version of omeprazole. But I think they were like, I want the brand of omeprazole, and we were like, it's the same thing, and they were like, no, I don't like.
I think it's because they're so used to having that same tablet for so many years, and if you're a bit older, then you're scared different side effects, different tablets and stuff like that.
And working now in industry, I understand maybe the reason why actually is because maybe the excipients, they might have had a reaction, or it might not have suited their body the way did. So those are the 7 legal bases that we do use when we are submitting our applications to health authorities for our drug products. Now, if you've liked this video, please do like, subscribe and share. Send us any comments. If you've got any confusion or you want to know any more about the different legal bases, then drop us a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But we'll see you on the next one then.
See you.
Bye.